Friends, good morning to all of you. Very nice to meet you. First of all, I would like to greet Professor Andrei Shlatyev, the Vice Rector, and my greetings to Rector and all the faculty members and all of you friends. I am indeed delighted to address, and of course we are going to interact with the students of MGIMO University, which is the leading Russian educational center in the field of international relations, one of the world's leading universities, I understand. Congratulations to all of you to be the students of this university. MGIMO is known for its innovations, I understand. I understood from your website, and tradition, and has built a brand since its foundation from 1944. MGIMO was designed to become a unique educational research and scientific center in international relations, international economic relations, and public policy, and international law, political science, and international business and business administration. Everything you are learning here. It has produced many outstanding scientists and scholars in these areas, and several world-renowned scientific schools were founded here, I understand. It has contributed its might for the promotion of international energy cooperation. MGIMO is having a special focus training and capacity building on European issues to Russian statesmen. Today, MGIMO accepts more than, I understand, 1,000 students every year from mostly Russian regions and more than 50 foreign countries. Your alumni contribute all over the world. I greet all the pioneers, past and present, who have built this robust framework to make MGIMO University great in its core competence and knowledge. Dear young friends, India and Russia had great associations since ages and strengthened after independence, as your Vice Rector said, and is continuing in the present times. We both countries have a strategic partnership, has seen a purposeful cooperation in space, defense, nuclear science and technology, economy, trade, and other high-tech areas. We are witnessing the multi-dimensional foreign policies being pursued by many countries of the world, including India and Russia. Russia has got a tradition of strengths in metallurgy, mathematics, and you became the pioneers in space launch system by putting the Sputnik in the orbit, that we were all students at that time. Landau's contribution in theoretical physics, we all study, are phenomenal. Korolev was the rocket designer par excellence, who launched the first modern liquid fuel rocket in 1933. And Konstantin Tsiolsky is an inspirer for the whole space community, is one of the fathers of space exploration. Tsiolsky blended the passion for space with hard mathematical calculations to produce the vision for the future. He imagined a time when spaceship would launch from the Earth to a large space station and colonies. From there, he proposed these ships would propel humanity to explore the moon and Mars. His thought has influenced many space scientists and technologists, including India. Russia was the pioneer in aerospace technologies. Similarly, friends, I am greatly influenced in India in the war between British and Srirangapatnam as one of the warriors in India, Tipu Sultan. Tipu, the ruler of Mysore state in the war against British, used war rockets against the cavalries and defeated the British force in 1792. He was the first in the world to introduce rocket force in the army. Through India, though India was a latecomer in the modern space activities, it is one of the leading nations today in space application, with capacity to build spacecraft and launch them. We in India also remember the pioneering contribution to the science made by Chandrasekhar Subramaniam for his Chandrasekhar limit and black hole. Sir C.V. Raman for his discovery of the Raman effect. Srinivasa Ramanujan for his contribution towards number theory, J.C. Bose in the area of microwave, and Meghnad Saha for thermoionizing equation. Russia and India have a tradition of knowledge and have a civilizational strength. We also share a common vision of the world of bringing prosperity, peace and partnership in the whole of humanity. Shared vision, through this strength and commonly shared vision, we can definitely build a prosperous society. A prosperous society with civilizational strength will lead to peace. With this background, I would like to discuss with the students and faculty members of MGIMO University the topic I have selected: empowered international diplomacy and evolution of happy and peaceful society. Recently, friends, I have made a study on different phases of global life and the effect of war through the ages. Up to the year 1920, it was mostly direct human warfare, as you know. War was essentially the means of establishing or enlarging kingdoms by annexing multiple territories with wealth or proliferating religious doctrines. The means used were primitive weapons like swords and animal platforms. And the tool used by kings and emperors were religion. The dominating nation in this period of warfare was Romans, Crusaders, and the Arabs. The next phase, that is in 1920 to 1990, the warfare was weapon-driven. The weapons for the warfare were guns, tanks, aircraft, ships, submarines, including nuclear weapons deployment, missiles, and also reconnaissance spacecraft in the orbit. These weapons and related systems were possessed mostly by USA and erstwhile Soviet Union. They were propagating certain ideologies and enlisting number of nations, giving benefits commercially and militarily to attract them, leading economic development. Proliferation of conventional nuclear and biological weapons was at peak by the growth of competition of these two nations or two blocs or superpowers in developing and deploying nuclear weapons. The next phase just started in 1990 onwards. The Cold War era is over and the multilateral thinking is emerging. Technology enabled communication, making the world a global village. The expectation of citizens world over is towards minimum standards of living. At the same time, population pressures and dwindling resources like energy and water have become potential conflict resources. New economic nations like China and India are making their presence felt. The world has graduated into playing the economic warfare. The means used is control of market forces through high technology and price competitive quality products. The driving force is the wealth generation with a certain type of economical doctrine in the background of military power. In an electronically connected world, many nations will be endangered in such a situation of future war and the power of cyber war, which can create a destruction effortlessly at the speed of light. Even the ICBM and the other nuclear weapons become insignificant. In such a situation, the diplomat community, you assembled here, has to find a techniques to prevent and counter such warfare. MGIMO school may like to consider such a situation and evolve environment-based strategies and define the role of diplomats, which will be useful as a case material. Friends, I visualize that in the times ahead, we will enter a time where the strength of the nation will be judged by the cooperative links it establishes with other nations and the rest of the world. The notion of war shall be replaced by nations sharing markets, thriving on each other's competencies, where free flow of ideas, people and innovation can occur to deliver better living standard to all. Let me Let me share with all of you two such examples which highlights how the research of competency of one nation is spanning beyond the boundaries and even across the continent. Diplomacy is a dynamic process. It depends upon the state of the country, the state of the world, the global technological levels, and the aspiration of the human society. In future, we may also move towards getting material from Moon and creation of habitat in Mars. A solar power satellite in geosynchronous orbit or a lunar power station may power the entire planet Earth. Above all, we have to keep peace in space. From the earlier Cold War era, the world has become a unipolar. A number of economic powers are emerging in the world, such as Southeast Asia, Gulf countries, Brazil, China, and India, apart from the existing USA, European Union, Japan, and Russia. The revolution in integrated circuit technology, internet communication, and space technologies have shrunk the distance and created a global village. Genetic engineering has created a new dimension for healthcare. Thinking globally and acting locally has become a reality. The technologies have revolutionized the communication and contact among the world's citizens, and large population has their realistic appreciation of situation in other parts of the world. The borderless world enables optimal utilization of talent across the world, be it science, technology, industry, economy, and business. India in particular has demonstrated its upswing in economic development and also in the field of space, nuclear science, pharma, and auto industries on a strong foundation of its democratic process. We have become a software capital of the world, and the contribution of the Indian diaspora, business leaders, and talents in arts and sports are becoming increasingly visible in various parts of the world. The multinational companies are evincing great interest in starting new joint ventures with Indian companies. However, the pace of progress will further increase if the country adopts a single window clearance system for foreign investment. The interaction among the reputed academic institutions from all over the world with the Indian institution is on the increase. Indian companies, based on their technological and managerial excellence, have the capacity to invest in other countries. Now, I would like to share with you my personal experience in dealing with a foreign collaboration, which was mainly possible by the counseling, guidance, and effective follow-up on a mission mode by our Indian diplomatic community that will benefit multiple nations. Now, friends, let me now focus on how India and Russia has tried hard cooperation based on its core competence to evolve a world-class product and services using innovation, creativity, knowledge generation, knowledge sharing, and knowledge dissemination among the scientists of the two countries. I would like to recall the contribution of our MEA team in Russia in signing the Indo-Russian joint venture agreement of BrahMos. The BrahMos CEO is somewhere here. This is the guy, BrahMos CEO, and he is working. Is a unique program. One of the significant technological breakthrough in India and Russia in this decade is the design, development, and productionization of a supersonic cruise missile BrahMos by India-Russia joint venture. BrahMos by an Indo-Russian joint venture. BrahMos is the first supersonic operational cruise missile in the world which can be launched from multiple platforms. And the system so designed, the system so developed is precise on the target, delivering enormous kinetic energy due to its supersonic speed and most cost-effective way. Most importantly, an advanced world-class system has been realized in shortest possible time, leapfrogging other countries. This is indeed the result of technological and financial cooperation leading to an operational system in a successful design, development, production, and marketing of BrahMos missile, an innovative way of technology cooperation has emerged between India and Russia for nearly $10 billion business with an investment of $150 million each partner. This message I would like to convey out of this program is, it is possible for India with core competence multiple fields to work with many countries in joint venture mode, bringing together multiple core competence of partnering nation, leading to the successful enterprises. BrahMos is an example of technological cooperation leading to economic benefits for the partnering nation and adds value to a number of institutions, both countries, that is Russia and India. BrahMos joint venture shows how the core competence of many countries can be brought together for addressing a need, particularly societal transformation. In this project itself, as a corporate social responsibility, support was given to extend the benefit of the lightweight caliper, a spin-off from missile technology, to 30,000 polio-affected children from India, Thailand, Laos, and other Asian countries. Would you like to add? Now let me discuss how the international relationship between India and the African Union were strengthened based on the international social responsibility initiative of both countries. During the year 2003, 2004, I visited African countries such as Sudan, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and South Africa. I addressed the Pan-African Parliament on 16 September 2004 at Johannesburg, South Africa, which was attended by the heads of 53 member countries of the African Union. Based on my study of the communication, healthcare, and education needs of the African countries, I proposed the concept of Pan-African e-network for providing seamless and integrated satellite, fiber optics, and wireless network connecting 53 African countries. This Indian initiative was accepted by the Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African network is estimated to cost about $300 million. As part of the project, 12 universities, 7 from India, 5 from Africa, 17 super specialty hospitals, 12 from India, 5 from Africa, 53 telemedicine centers, 53 tele-education centers in Africa will be connected, has been connected. The pilot project on tele-education, telemedicine, and many areas have already commenced. And as regards telemedicine, the specialist from Care Hospital, Hyderabad, providing 1 hour live telecast. The Pan-African e-network is primarily providing tele-education, telemedicine, internet, video conferencing, and VoIP services. It is also supporting e-governance, e-commerce, info entertainment, resource mapping, and meteorological services. Each remote location is able to access the internet through the networking of linking the hub to internet backbone. Nearly 53 out of 53 countries, already 45 countries, they have given the service telemedicine, tele-education, and e-governance. So this is another international program. As now, friends, I would like to say, I would like to give the sequence of events which took place before signing the MOU between India and African Union, and both the foreign diplomats with African country, as well as the Indian country, they work together and see that BrahMos missile production today going in a big way has become one of the very big international projects. Next. Now, national prosperity is essential for global prosperity. However, experience has shown, friends, the prosperity of few individual nations or prosperity of segments within nation are not adequate. Also, there are many critical issues which can be solved only through the advanced technologies, common missions, and mature diplomacy, and require careful consideration of transnational dynamics and current multilateral world. It is a great challenge and opportunity for diplomatic world. Recently, along with my team, I had a course in Gatton Business School in Kentucky. We interacted with the students attending faculty through email before the course. We evolved a development profile for Global Vision 2030 and took it as the basis for our class. The elements of the global development profile are as follows. This is what I would like to discuss with you, friends. The 2030 vision for the world, a world of nation where the divide between the rural and urban, rich and the poor, developed and developing has narrowed down. A world of nation where there is an equitable distribution and adequate access to energy and quality water. A world where core competencies of each nation are identified, mission synergizing the core competencies of different nations lead to the economic advantage and faster development for all the societies. A world of nation where all the students of all the societies, all the nations where all the students of the societies are imparted education with value system. A world of nation where affordable quality healthcare is available to all. A world of nation where the governance is responsive, transparent, corruption-free. A world in which every nation is able to give a clean, green environment to all its citizens. A world that is prosperous, healthy, secure, devoid of terrorism, peaceful, happy, and continues with a sustainable growth path. Finally, a world of nation with creative leadership who ensure effective mechanism to resolve conflicts between nations and societies in a timely manner, keeping overall peace and prosperity of the world as a global. This is the kind of world which we have to create to the youth of the world. The foundation of the World Vision 2030 should be enshrined in regional cooperation and development based on the successful international diplomacy. The international diplomacy will ultimately empower the individual nation to realize the vision. The MGIMO University may take up the potential contribution of the international diplomacy in realizing each one of the pillar of 10 profile what I have discussed. Dear students, when you graduate from MGIMO University in the subject of international relations and its associated field, you will find a new dimension and challenges on the international arena. The future will witness a convergence of political systems, societal networks, economic dynamics, and technological framework. In a globalizing world, our problems will be international. The solution for them will also have to be international, and their impact will be felt by the global community as a whole. You will be required to work towards creating a collaborative environment for solving the global challenges of economic stability and resource conflict, climate change, and issues relating to trade and commerce. The realization of global goals will require creative leaders who above all work with integrity and succeed with integrity. I consider that creation of such creative leaders by MGIMO will be the greatest tribute to the institution which has nurtured the excellence of academics track record since the inception in 1944. My greetings and best wishes to all the members of MGIMO success in their mission of promoting and nurturing the better international understanding between nations of the world. May God bless you all, friends.
Спасибо, господин Калам. Я хочу вас пригласить, чтобы ответить на вопросы студентов. Как видите, на вас возлагаются большие надежды, на студентов, на будущих лидеров, которые должны будут обустроить наш новый и лучший мир. Пожалуйста, ваши вопросы. Молодой человек сзади.
On behalf of our university, of our students, it's a great honor for me to thank you, Honorable Mr. President, for coming to our university and delivering such a flabbergasting speech. Actually, as a student of the Faculty of International Relations and as a student who is learning Hindi as my principal language, I'm keenly interested in the following subject. Could you please say a couple of words concerning the NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the CTBTO, Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization? What is the Indian attitude towards these two organizations and all this stuff? Thank you.
One is nuclear treaty.
Sorry?
NPT.
Yes.
Well, NPT, you know, we have a definite view. That means, you know, today, if you look at the nations, there are nearly 10,000 nuclear warheads, okay? You know, 10,000. 5,000 is American-based nuclear warheads and 5,000 mostly Russian-based nuclear warheads, okay? Now, the NPT is a relevance. It all depends. How we start, there was a president of Russia and president of America. They signed an agreement that they have to reduce, okay, reduce the nuclear weapon, the total number of nuclear weapons. If that such a thing happens, such a thing fantastically happens, I'll be very happy. And definitely India will be the first country that once they reduce, our nuclear weapon also will go to zero, okay? And, but I want to tell you something because you asked an interesting question. This nuclear NPT, it become useless. Why it become useless? Because the reason is the cyber warfare, the world is being connected. You know about it, economically connected. The banks are connected, the infrastructure is connected, all the economic forces connected, traffic connected. So cyber war, it will destroy far in the speed of light, okay? ICBM and cannot stand, our nuclear weapon cannot stand. So I am working for how to make nuclear weapons insignificant, okay? That is what my job, okay? I am working for how to make nuclear weapons, whether they destroy or not, because we are hearing for the destruction for the past 2 decades, they have not destroyed, okay? So how to make the nuclear weapon useless, okay? Insignificant. Diplomatically, it's insignificant. So that's my mission, okay?
श्री राष्ट्रपति, आपकी भाषण के लिए धन्यवाद। और मैं भी हिंदी सीखती हूँ और आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ, अगर हमारे दो देशों के बीच आदान प्रदान, छात्रों का आदान प्रदान स्थापित कर सके या नहीं? धन्यवाद।
Beautiful Hindi you are speaking. Congratulations.
Could you please tell us about the prospects of student exchange between our countries? Thank you.
I think, I believe that I was suggesting to the Vice Rector that the PhD programs in various fields of interrelations, Indian University and the university here, they can, common PhD program they can have. There is 50% of the time they will have in India supervisor, 50% in this university. So that type of the higher education will make a big change. I'm pushing that idea, okay?
It's really an honor for me to be here. I would like to ask you, in your book, India 2020, you wrote that in 10 years' time, India will transform into a high-tech, developed country. So, in today's fast-moving world, there are, of course, there are different ways. So, what particular missions and measures can you tell us about in this sphere?
See, India 2020 mission, we have got another 10 years, okay? Only 10 years more. In 10 years more, we have to make the nation economically developed, okay? Economically developed today, only G8 countries. So, probably India, another 10 years' time, it will be economically developed nation. Now our GDP, even though there was a crisis, the economic crisis took place 2 years back, that crisis did not affect India. Even though our GDP and IT area slightly came down, we have picked up now GDP, that is the economic growth, 9% GDP. So we believe by next year, GDP growth will go to 10%, economic growth to 10%. If this 10%, if we maintain for a decade, then we have arrived. We are giving the priority to 5 areas: agriculture, agro-food processing, education and healthcare, particularly women education, the highest priority. And third is information communication technology, because we have got 600,000 villages with 700 million people, 70% of the people live there. So we are going to do, for answer to your question, a new idea, what's called Pura. Pura means providing urban amenities in the rural area. We are going to connect villages, 20, 30 villages. Like that, 7,000 Puras will be there. So that will become an economic entity.
Mr. Kalam, thank you very much for your speech. And I've already graduated from this university, and my question is quite philosophic. So in your speech, you mentioned several times the happiness of nation. So how do you see the happiness of nation? Does it somehow correspond with the happiness of one person? And is it the same for all nation, or every nation has their own happiness? How do you see it?
It's a beautiful question.
Thank you.
You know, it's like this. April 5th, 2007, I addressed European Union Parliament, you know. Strasbourg, they have got a European Union Parliament. When I addressed, I told them, 23 countries of European nations, I told them, the same nations, hundreds of years they were having a war. They were fighting against each other country, okay? And then they created 2 world wars. It came to Russia also. 2 world wars they created. Now, the nation can have a war hundreds of years. They can generate the world war. But today, they have become a parliament, a 23 nation with the theme, economic prosperity and peace. Economic prosperity and peace. This is a very good example that nations can work together. And I am propagating a regional peace. That means the nation which has fought for hundreds of years, they work together for peace and prosperity. That means not one person. It's that nearly 500 million people, they are working for peace. Imagine in SAARC countries, similar thing happened. That is South Asian countries. India, Pakistan, all those countries. That means another 1.5 billion nation. So we should promote the regional treaties, so that similar to the European Union Parliament, we must establish peace may come very faster. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Kalam, thank you very much for your lecture. It was really very exciting. And on behalf of the first year student, we'd like to ask you a question about high tech, as it's your major sphere. So what do you think about the future of Russian-Indian cooperation in the high tech sphere?
Russian and Indian cooperation.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I believe sky is the limit, I think so, okay? Sky is the limit. For example, one of the very successful program between India and Russia, I can say, the BrahMos, okay? That BrahMos, I know a scientist here, Russian scientist. He knows me. These 2 scientific minds came together. BrahMos came, and we invested $150 million, and each nation, today, it's about $10 billion business. I am promoting this idea between India and Russia. Go to the commercial sector, okay? Commercial sector, you select the best in the commercial area of India, commercial area in Russia, and the similar cooperation, joint ventures should take place so that people benefit, large number of people will benefit, okay?
Do you think that in the near future, advanced technologies could reach remote areas and not very developed areas? I mean, Africa, some areas in Asia, the areas where people are really living under hard conditions, and they strive for food mostly, not for technology.
Actually, this one example, what just now I gave Pan-African e-network. It is telemedicine, teleeducation. It's the internet revolution. Actually, the India initiative, today 53 African nations are benefiting in the telemedicine, teleeducation, and e-governance area. 45 countries are being connected. So to your question, I will say yes, it's possible. For example, internet. You take mobile telephones. Mobile telephones, every second citizen in India has got 500 million mobile has come. Any corner of the village has reached there. A milkman has can, a servant can have, a farmer can have. So the technology is very fast. It moves very fast. So our diplomacy is not fast. You know, technology even though fast, our diplomacy has to match the speed of the technology.
Speaking about technology, everything is very under one standard, internet one standard, and I think that it kills national specifics, national culture. You have to speak English, and you have to comply with the rules that are established somewhere globally. Do you think that it affects national development as a nation or cultural development?
You know, I have a feeling when Konstantin Tsiolkovsky visualized that rocket equation, and it's called Tsiolkovsky equation. Using that equation only, we put a satellite in the orbit. Using the equation only, we put a missile product in the territory, you use it. So the technology and science, it gives a solution. E equal to mc square, if you take an energy equation for Einstein, it can generate electricity, it can make a bomb also, okay? It can make a bomb also. Similarly, the aircraft, it can carry the passenger, it can be a bombs it can carry. But the solution lies, it is not the technology or science, it is the leader. What is the type of leader we create? The leader has to have a righteousness in the heart. So that means we have to create a leadership in such a way, we have to elect the leadership who will have the righteousness in the heart. If there is a righteousness in the heart, there's a beauty in the character. If there's a beauty in the character, there is a harmony in the home. If there is harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. If there is order in the nation, there's peace in the world.
Пожалуйста, используйте эту возможность для того, чтобы задать вопрос очень интересному гостю. Пожалуйста, девушка.
I'm really glad to greet you here. Your speech was really exciting and interesting, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm concerning the peaceful world development. And I have one question which involves my personal interest. I'm eager to study Hindi as a third language, and that's why it's interesting to me what prospects the young specialist will have if he knows Hindi. Thank you so much.
Well, what you do, you send an email to me, okay? My email apj@abdulkalam.com. apj@abdulkalam.com. And see that copy marked to my friend here, our embassy also, okay? Then we both of us will push it, okay? Okay? Push it to a good solution.
I would like to thank you once again for such a useful lecture for us and for your visit here. And I'm studying Urdu as just the first language, and so I'm just familiar with the relations of Pakistan and India. And I would like to ask you, the relations are your countries are closely linked, and but the relations are not always easy. And I would like to ask you, can just a country can countries not tolerate their differences, but somehow celebrate them, somehow benefit from their differences? What, in your opinion, is the key to union of nations? Can they benefit from each other's differences? And what is the key to peace, to beneficial relations for both the sides?
Well, you know, my dear friend, I want to share with you an experience. The experience is I was in the Queen's University in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Queen's University. So I was addressing the students. One Pakistan student got up, okay? One Pakistan student, he said, Mr. Kalam, can you tell me, anytime India, Pakistan can work together, okay? Can anytime work together? Pakistan, India, work together. The answer was, just now I gave a case, how Europe was fighting, European countries were fighting for hundreds of years. Today, in spite of a different culture, different language, a different style, they tolerate each other, they formed a European Union and Parliament, okay? So it looks to me, two things needed. Number one, in the education, up to the 17 age, what is called education value system. Children should be taught up to the age of 17. That means difference of style, difference of culture, difference of religion, we must celebrate, okay? Instead of making the difference as an ideology for war, we must start appreciating it. So the educational system has to change. So I am pushing the internationally up to age 17, educational value system about great human being children should learn. So the differences will come down, tolerance will come. Okay? Beautiful question, beautiful question. Thank you.
Спасибо. Пожалуйста.